5:30 p.m. Let's see. Let's do roll call. Trustee Barnes.
Present.
Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Present.
Trustee or Clerk Venegas.
Present.
Vice President Wong.
Here.
And I too am here. Announcement of items to be discussed in closed session. E1, Government Code Section 54956.9, D2, pending or potential litigation, one case, claim number 571022. E2, Government Code Section 54957.6, conference with labor negotiators, WSTA, CSEA, and management. E3, action item, Government Code Section 54954, adoption of resolution number 2021-48, notice of release of temporary employees. Government Code Section 54957, public employee superintendent. Is there anyone wishing to make a public comment? Mario, have you received any?
Yes, President Bisotti, Danny Langford just commented indicating that she'd like to speak.
We have one public comment. Let me read the admonishment here. Members of address the board on topics of our board agenda, in addition to topics that are under the jurisdiction of the board and are not on the agenda, although the board may, by law, not take action at this meeting. The board may limit the total time for public input on any topic to 20 minutes unless it chooses to waive the item limit for a particular item. Individual speakers may be limited to 3 minutes to comment on any topic. Public comments consisting of an individual charges, complaints, or derogatory remarks about any district employee are requested to be submitted in writing to the administration in accordance with the district's complaint procedure. As such, the board reminds the public that the district has existing board policy that allows the public to lodge a complaint against the district employee. This policy provides a comprehensive procedure for reviewing and responding to public complaints. This process provides a more thorough opportunity to be heard than is allowed under the open meeting law that governs this meeting. The board respects the rights of members of the public to speak regarding matters on the agenda and other matters within the jurisdiction of the board. However, it is important for members of the public to recognize that comments regarding students other than the speaker's own children made during public board meetings may be legally actionable as a violation of student privacy. Both the state and federal prohibit the board and others from discussing any confidential student information in open session. To this end, be advised that if you reference a student's name other than your own student, you will be out of order and comments may not be protected by the privileges that protect public speech. You can be found liable for such comments in legal proceedings. Furthermore, it is important for the public to understand that negative or derogatory comments made against district employees or others, even those made in a public board meeting, may be actionable civil defamation. All right, Mario, who do we have wanting to speak?
Yes, we have Danny Langford. Danny, your microphone is turned on and you may begin.
Can you all hear me fine?
We can.
I'm just noticing that on the closed session, yet again, the superintendent is going into closed session with you. And I respectfully request that if this is an evaluation, you say so. Otherwise, I request you do not discuss anything, as the Brown Act does not allow for you to just go behind closed doors and discuss the public's business at any time you deem fit. This is the second meeting in a row she's been in closed session, and she was also on the closed session agenda at the special meeting March 13th. I ask you to do the right thing and stop going behind closed doors and discussing things you're not supposed to be discussing. If it's an evaluation, say so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any other public comments, Mario?
No other requests have come in.
Okay, and with that, we shall adjourn into closed session.
Hi, phone number 8684.
Hey Mario, this is Daniel. I'm just letting you know it's good.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Mr. Miramontes, it's Jay Burns. Can Justin Young from the high school do a sound check, please?
Yeah, Justin is a panelist, so he should be able to unmute and give it a whirl if he wants.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
Fantastic. Can I just check and see if you can hear my audio as well from
Absolutely.
the slideshow? Okay. Mr. Miramontes, when I present, am I able to share my screen? Because I know right now it's disabled.
I think as panelists, you should have a share screen option on the control panel. So it shouldn't be disabled. I can, I think Yorgos just gave you access if you wanted to look for the control
Yes.
panel.
Got it. I'm good now. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
All right, good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience as we wait for the board. I just was advised that they will need about 10 to 15 more minutes before they reconvene from open session. We thank you for your patience. In the meantime, if you would like to make a public comment, please feel free to raise your hand or submit a chat request on the chat box, and we'll be happy to add you to our queue. Thank you so much for your patience.
facilitated without needing $1,000.
Okay. We are back, and I'm going to take a quick roll call. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez,
Here.
Vice President Wong,
Present.
I too am present. Clerk Venegas,
Present.
Trustee Barnes.
Present.
All right, we're all here. Let us go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Can I have Yorgos lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Yorgos. Okay. Let's see. Announcement of action taken in closed session. E1, Government Code Section 54956.9D2, pending or potential litigation, one claim, one case, claim number 571022, information received. E2, Government Code Section 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiators, WSTA, CSEA, and Management, information received. E3, action item, Government Code Section 44954, adoption of resolution number 2021-48, notice of release of temporary employees. The vote was 5-0. E4, Government Code Section 54957, public employee superintendent. Draft goals were discussed. All right. Moving down to I, the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any items they'd like to pull from the agenda or out of consent or anything like that? No? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move.
Moved by Clerk Venegas,
I second.
second by Vice President Wong. Roll call vote. Trustee Barnes?
Aye.
Clerk Venegas? Aye. I too vote aye. Vice President Wong?
Aye.
And Trustee Kirby Gonzalez?
Aye.
All right. The agenda is approved. Moving on to J, communications and celebrations. J1, celebration of student athletes. Jay Burns, Director of Special Programs. Dr. Burns, good to see you.
Hey, thank you for having us tonight. Thank you, trustees. Thank you, superintendent. We're happy to be here tonight. Tonight's a celebration of our student athlete leaders. Let's emphasize that. This is what I like to call a legacy of greatness. There's going to be a lot of young men and women who want to emulate these student athlete leaders in the city of West Sacramento, and we're very proud of them tonight. So we want to have Justin Young, assistant principal from the Amazing Raiders. You've never heard me say Amazing Raiders, right? Sir, Mr. Moisich, you're laughing at me. But tonight we're going to talk about these impressive Raiders, and go for it, Mr. Young. You're on.
Thank you, Dr. Burns, and thank you, trustees. And Dr. Hildreth. I'm excited to be here to celebrate our student athletes, and we have many of them here present on the panel, so I'm going to be highlighting some of them. I do have a slideshow, so I'm going to begin that.
Let's get ready to rumble!
All right. Celebrating our student athletes and their huge achievements.
Y'all ready for this? We're gonna get funky.
All right, so first I'd like to introduce some of our student athletes that are competing
Everybody
at
clap
the
your
next
hands.
level,
Clap,
at the collegiate level.
Clap your hands.
And I just want to make sure that you can actually see the slideshow. Could I get a thumbs up? Because I am not able to see it on my end. No, you're not. Okay. So let me update that. My apologies.
The music was great, though.
Let's see.
When Christy ever shows up for 7 a.m. again.
All right, there we go. Now we're in business. So our first student athlete who is competing at the collegiate level is Miss Allie Ainsworth. So Allie's going to be attending Cal State University, Monterey Bay, where she's going to be playing water polo. She's going to be majoring in kinesiology with the hopes of becoming an occupational therapist after graduating. Now, Allie's not only an amazing water polo player, but she has also played 4 years of varsity soccer and swimming. Not only is she a stellar athlete, but she's an incredible student. She is graduating in the top 10 in her class, leaving River City High School with a 4.35 GPA. Congratulations, Allie. We are so incredibly proud of you. I know Allie had a soccer game as well tonight, and I'm not sure if you're here, Allie, but if you're here from the soccer field and want to wave to everybody, we'll give you a big shout out and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just came from my polo game. Now I'm at the soccer banquet.
So Allie balances so many things. She's playing water polo and soccer at the same time. It's incredible. Congratulations, Allie. We're very proud of you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up is another Otter heading to Cal State Monterey Bay, and that's Lindsay DeWitt. Lindsay is an amazing soccer player also. She started playing soccer at the age of 8 and is playing the ever most important position of goalkeeper. She's achieved 2 shutout seasons and earned the top award any goalkeeper can earn, which is the Golden Glove Award. And when I played goalkeeper, I only earned the Butter Hands Award. So congratulations to Lindsay for those accolades. Not only does Lindsay play soccer, but she also plays other sports, including track and field, and also competed on our cross-country team. Lindsay, again, like our other student athletes competing at the collegiate level, has excelled academically too, attaining honor roll status. She is completing one of our CTE pathways and the biomedical pathway. And when she gets to Cal State Monterey, she plans on majoring in psychology. Lindsay, in her spare time, gives swimming lessons. She babysits, she likes the outdoors, and she likes snowboarding. Her mom and dad are so proud of her. Congratulations, Lindsay. Lindsay's also at the soccer banquet as well. Lindsay, are you here and want to give a shout out?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Lindsay, congratulations. We are so, so proud of you.
Thank you.
All right, our next student athlete that's competing at the next level is Claudia Medina. Claudia has been playing softball since she was 6 or 7 years old, and her dad actually coached her up until she was 14 years old. And prior to the pandemic, Claudia was an amazing basketball player, but she's focusing this year on softball. She's playing at Utah State. Go Utah State Aggies, and is planning to major in market and business. Some of the many accomplishments, these are just a few. She was voted all league in 9th and 10th grade for both varsity softball and basketball, has been on honor roll for all 4 years. She's ranked 69th in the entire nation. For softball, she's ranked 24th in California and 9th in our division. She's going to be graduating from River City High School, another stellar student with a 3.94 GPA. Claudia, congratulations. I know Claudia was crushing it yesterday as well in our softball game, and where we beat Winters, I think 12-1. Claudia, are you here? I see Claudia's name, but she may be out there smashing home runs, catching fly balls right now. So congratulations, Claudia. We are so proud of you and have an amazing time at Utah State. Next up is Joshua Naglafua. Josh is attending Cal State or Cal Poly San Luis Obispo on a full ride scholarship for football. Josh, if I was walking by him, literally would tackle me. Just kidding. No, Josh is amazing. He plans to major in kinesiology and then become a physical therapist or a strength and conditioning coach for a football team. And we know you're going to be incredibly successful at that because you're an incredible football player. He is excited to compete at the collegiate level in football and also break away from the bird's nest and live on his own. And again, Josh, another one of our stellar athletes, is going to be graduating from River City High School with a 4.0 GPA. Just incredible what our student athletes are achieving in the classroom and out on the field and in the pool. Our last student athlete that's competing at, oh, I'm sorry. And Josh, are you here?
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations, Josh. We love seeing that Cal Poly San Luis Obispo outfit on as well. We are so proud of you.
Thank you.
All right. And our next athlete that we're highlighting is Colleen Coco Rodriguez. Coco is going to the home of Dr. Burns, the college, SUNY College of Staten Island, and is playing soccer there. Now Coco's played soccer since she was 4 and has played with a number of different clubs throughout her career, finishing with the Elite San Juan Soccer Club. Coco plays midfield and forward positions. When I failed at goalkeeper, I tried those 2 positions and also failed at those. But Coco is crushing it. Her passion is soccer. She's going to be studying to become a nurse while she's at SUNY Staten Island and is going to be doing amazing. And again, just like all of our student and scholar athletes competing collegiately and across River City, she's graduating from River City with a 4.5 GPA. And in the very limited free time that Coco has when she's not crushing it on the soccer field, she is working at Whitey's, which I believe she's actually working at tonight. Coco, I don't know if you were there and were able to get off early, or Mom, if you're tuning in right now.
Hi, I'm here. This is Lori.
Hi, Lori. Well, congratulations to Coco and all of her accomplishments. And I know you and family are incredibly proud.
Thank you. Yes, we are. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So a round of applause to all of our student athletes that are competing at the college level, as well as the other students that weren't on here, but they are in the process of competing at the collegiate level. We are so, so proud of you. So I just wanted to quickly scroll through and celebrate a couple of our other student athletes. So we have scholar athletes that have 4.0 or higher, much like the students that we highlighted, but we also have student athletes that are crushing it with 3.5 to 3.9. So I'm going to just show you their names as well. All right, so I wanted to just quickly scroll through all of those student athletes, and literally it's hundreds and hundreds of student athletes in all of our sports that have 3.5 to 3.9 GPAs. Congratulations to them. The list just goes on and on and on and on. I had to make the font tiny to fit all these student athletes. And then our scholar athletes that have 4.0 GPAs or higher, that list just goes on and on and on and on as well. We are incredibly proud of the students and their accomplishments, not only on the field, in the pool, on the courts, but most importantly, what they're doing as leaders in the classroom, on our campus and throughout the community. So again, round of applause to all those students. Thank you so much, and congratulations again to all our scholar athletes. We are incredibly proud of you.
Thank you very much, Justin. I appreciate that. And I wanted to quickly comment on something that Dr. Burns said was, these are our scholastic athlete leaders. I mean, they really are setting the bar very high and taking their not only athletics very seriously, but also their academics. As you could see by how long that list was of 4.0s and 3.5 to 3.9s, like that is an incredible list, and they're all playing an athletic program. So thank you so much to our student athlete leaders and the time and the dedication that they have. And thank you for bringing this forward. Okay. Moving on to student association report. Our student board member is Damian Garcia from River City High School.
Hello.
Hello, Damian. Go right ahead.
Thank you. I'll just wait for it to load. Okay. So hello. Okay, to start off with Bridgeway, a shout out to the BWI 3rd through 8th grade students for a job well done on their May I Ready diagnostics test. Despite the challenges faced during COVID, BWI saw growth across the board in ELA and mathematics. BWI wishes their 8th graders the very best as they prepare to transition to the next phase of their lives. They will forever be Bridgeway Bees. The BWI staff concluded a book study on how to be an anti-racist. Following the powerful learning opportunity, the team is preparing for their next steps in their equity work. Elkhorn. Today, 2nd through 8th grade students engaged in a social emotional learning day. Students engaged in many team building activities where empathy and character building is the focus. Elkhorn Village partnered up with local community organizations to make this happen. This Friday, Elkhorn Village will host the last virtual coffee with the principal. And this event begins at 8:45, and they look forward to seeing all their families to put a cap on the 2020-2021 school year. Okay, for Riverbank, their kindergartners had a field trip to 1st grade. They had their COVID vaccine clinic, outdoor dining at its finest, and 6th through 8th grade sports. Southport. Thank you to their wonderful PTO for applying for the West Sacramento Education Foundation grant and using the funds to purchase a monitor to be used for instruction and meetings. Congratulations to their kindergartners and 8th graders that we'll be promoting in the next few days. They're very appreciative of their entire staff for providing quality instruction and connecting with their community during the unprecedented time. They hope everyone enjoys their families and rests this summer. Stonegate. Their TK through 5th graders participated in the Kids Heart Challenge, becoming more aware to support healthy hearts and raise funds. Students raised over $3,000 to support the cause. They have several staff members and administration who will take turns getting pied on June 1st as a prize for their top donation collectors. Great job to the 3rd through 8th grade students for their hard work and focus during their iReady testing window. They are excited to celebrate and honor their 8th grade students as they promote and transition to high school. We wish all 8th graders well on their journey. Washington Adult School. Washington Adult School is excited to be graduating on Tuesday, June 1st at 7 p.m. at Drake's The Barn. Washington Middle College High School. Congratulations to class of 2021. Their first official freshman class graduated Tuesday, and they are full of Panther pride. Westfield. Their middle school scholars had an opportunity to create their own products, pitch them to a former contestant of Shark Tank, and then participate in their own episode of Shark Tank. Their after-school sports for learning classes have been participating in fun team-building games and activities. Thank you, Mr. Morsage, for bringing this program to our district. Preschool scholars are learning about sharks and their anatomic features while also having fun. Westmore Oaks. WMO is busy packing and labeling at this time for their move to the new old campus. They look forward to a new school, all students coming back, and a new WMO culture and climate. They're looking forward to both their kinder promotion on Friday, June 4th, and 8th grade promotion on Thursday, June 3rd. We wish them success in their next grade level. And a special thanks to Superintendent Dr. Hildreth for speaking to their parents and highlighting the new campus. Yolo High School. Yolo High School is excited to be graduating on Tuesday, June 1st at 7 p.m. at Drake's The Barn. And River City High School. The Rice Center is located in the main administrative building and is an area open to any RCHS student to use during the school day for a de-escalation, reflection, and restoration. Students can take a few minutes to find calm, talk to someone about how they're feeling, use the tools in the center to cope with the strong emotions, or even learn about mental health. Rise Center supports and protocols are all centered in research-based practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Damien. I appreciate your comments there. Now time for the WSTA report. Doug Knapp.
Good evening, Kobe. Good evening, Superintendent Hildreth, and the rest of the trustees. Listen, tonight, all I wanted to do was express my appreciation to the school board, the cabinet, WUSD teachers and classified staff, just for the outstanding effort in this really, really difficult year. And it's just a heartfelt thank you on behalf of WSTA. And I don't want to, believe it or not, I want to be that brief because I don't want to take it from that. So that's it. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doug. We appreciate your brevity as we can move on now to the CSEA report. Is Daniel Gandara here?
Yeah, good evening, Superintendent Hildreth, President Pizzotti, Board and Cabinet. I'm not going to be as brief, but I'll be pretty brief. I just want to, last week was classified week, and I just want to thank all my classified members and my CSEA members for, again, a difficult year for a lot of classifications doing things well beyond their scope of work just to make this district and these schools function. So I just want to tell them thank you. And I know speaking with Superintendent, she feels the same way. So I just want to tell them thank you. With that being said, earlier in the year, I had brought up about waiving evaluations for this year. It obviously got lost in the fray of meetings and MOUs and just the chaotic year we had. But as the year is coming to an end, evaluation season is also coming. And my concern is or I would like to ask the district to let's waive evaluations this year for classified. I don't see how you efficiently evaluate someone that 85% of their job duties were outside their normal job duties. So I don't see how you can get a fair evaluation. Obviously, there's employees that need a little more care, and there's ways and means to make that happen. And trust me, the district knows those, and they do it well. So that's what I'll be talking to the superintendent about tomorrow in our meeting, and next week when Mr. Panu comes back or joins us, is evaluations, because I'm not sure how you effectively evaluate staff that, again, this year just wasn't a normal year. And also the last thing is, I know there's been a lot of positions flown with that AB 86 funding. I will be reaching out to HR and probably Ed Services for a breakdown of the costs. I know classified had 10% of whatever amount of money, and it was roughly 500,000. It was a little more than 500,000, but roughly 500,000. If we could just get a breakdown of actually what positions are being funded by it, how much it's coming out to, just a total cost analysis of it. And with that, also, I want to thank and I want to congratulate all the seniors who are graduating next week, and all the 8th graders who are promoting, and the little kindergarteners who are promoting. I just want to congratulate all the students, because they were in this rough year also with all us staff. So with that, you guys have a good evening. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Daniel. We appreciate your comments. Next, we're moving on to L, public comment. Let me ask Mario, do we have any public comment, Mario?
We do have one request from Danny Langford. She had a comment on general public comments.
Okay. I think Danny was on board when I read the first disclaimer, so go ahead, Danny.
Alrighty. Yes, I did hear it the first time, and I kind of have it memorized already anyway, so there's that. First, I'd like to say congratulations to all the River City athletic scholarship people. That's amazing. I know how exciting that is for their families, as well as our family participated in that many years ago. I also want to congratulate all those graduating from the various campuses. That's an amazing accomplishment, especially with the pandemic. And I'm very glad you guys are going to allow them to have a real live graduation. With that said, I appreciate the fact that you reported out on the item that I had issue with going into closed session with the superintendent's attendance, and the fact that it doesn't stay on the agenda if it's part of the evaluation, which I would really hope that you would, from now on, put that on there so that there's no confusion and it's total transparency then. I, again, too, have concerns that there's now been 3 meetings since March 13th that she's been in closed session with you guys, and it has not been reported out properly. Also, when you approve the agenda and there's something in consent that someone wants to request to speak on, shouldn't that be made for someone such as myself to be able to address before you approve consent? I do have something I want to ask a question on that agenda tonight, so I would hope that I would be able to ask it before you just wing through, run through, and approve consent. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Just for a point of clarification, we have yet to approve consent. We only approved the agenda. So the consent agenda is up next. And now we will be taking up the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items that they would like to have removed from consent? Seeing and hearing none, All right. Since we have a consent agenda item and Danny just mentioned it, I'm going to ask, is there anybody on public comment that would like to speak on the consent agenda?
Danny Langford had a comment on item, the consent agenda M10, I believe it was. Yes, M10.
Go ahead, Danny.
It's M7. It's
Sorry,
about,
M7. I
it's okay.
apologize.
It's the purchase of the library reception hallway furniture for the Fallbrook Westmore Oaks campus. It says that it's from Measure Z, and I want to know if that's actually where it's coming from. As the last meeting that Measure V and Measure Z were on there, they were not on the right item. So I just want clarification, because Measure Z was never supposed to pay for anything on the Fallbrook campus. And for the record, I did try to call and ask this question before tonight's meeting, but I have not heard back. So therefore, I have to come here to ask you in the formal way. I'd like an answer to that, please. Thank you.
Can I ask staff to clarify?
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Wong, or Vice President Wong. Can we have somebody from staff please answer that question?
Good evening, President Pizzotti. Dr. Hildreth, would you like me to cover that?
Yes, thank you, Terry.
Yes, I apologize. Unfortunately, it is Measure V, not Measure Z.
Thank you for your clarification there, Mr. Souza. So with that, the motion will be amended to change M1 to funds coming out of Measure V, Fund Number 21. Huh? M7, right? Right. For M7. Yeah. Fund 21 is Measure V funds. Okay.
So we're pulling it? So
No. We're making the consent agenda, but we're making an amendment to the consent agenda item M7 to
accurately reflect the funding source.
Right. And is that your motion, Vice President Wong?
I thought it was your motion.
All right, it will be my motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Let's go with Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Vice President Wong?
Aye.
I too vote aye. Clerk Venegas?
Aye.
Trustee Barnes?
Aye.
Okay, the consent agenda is adopted with the amendment to M7. Moving on. To N, public hearing, there are no public hearings. To O, information discussion items. O1, spring reopening town halls, feedback sessions, update. Dr. Schiller-Hildreth, Superintendent.
Thank you, President Pizzotti. I am excited to share this information with the trustees and our school community, because this really is the culmination of a wonderful engagement process. We wanted to make sure that as we focus on how we're going to move forward in the fall and how we're going to support our students, our staff, and our families, that we could hear input from all stakeholders who were impacted this year in a way that we've never had to come together as a community before. And so we engaged in a new process for Washington Unified. which allowed us to have reopening town halls with all of our groups. And we shared at that time that once we compiled all of the information, we would share the results of those conversations and dialogues with the board at an upcoming meeting. So that's what we are here to do this evening. Again, we started with why are we having a listening tour? And it was to make sure that we are all aligned as we prepare for the fall. And hearing input is one way, and really one of the most important ways to make sure that as we utilize information to create plans, that it is aligned to the needs of our students and our staff. Next slide, please. And so with the intent, just to highlight the intent of those town halls, we really wanted to focus on assessing the COVID-19 experiences, talking to our parents, our teachers, our certificated staff, classified staff, and our school and district leaders so that we can move forward as one community. And we wanted to get diverse perspectives, get authentic feedback, have specific ideas, and make sure we were hearing viewpoints in traditional and non-traditional ways. Next slide. During the town halls, these were the main themes that we asked for feedback on. We wanted to get an idea of where our stakeholder community felt about safety, communication, remote learning versus in-person learning, social emotional well-being, and how do we accelerate academic needs or learning loss. We also asked for feedback. Go back one slide just for a second. We also asked for feedback related to the AB 86 strategies that we have to determine which of these strategies we're going to use to draft the plan that it will be presented later this evening, and that we have been giving you updates on at our board budget study session and at our last meeting on May 13th. Next slide. So let's go over a little bit of the process and the participants to see the data that we have. Just going over who was in the room, we had our 5 town halls for parents and communities, with each trustee having an opportunity for parents in that trustee area to share their thoughts. We had 3 sessions with our teachers or certificated staff. We had 2 sessions with our classified staff. Next slide. We also had a feedback session again with our school leaders and our students. So when we compiled all of the data, it was about 14 sessions with approximately 690 people attending, including our board and district leaders. We had assistance from the external facilitators from Performance Fact, and that was during the last 2 weeks of April. We also wanted to make sure we had ways to get input from those stakeholders who could not attend a feedback session. And so we had an online survey that was available not only in English, but it was available in Farsi, Russian, and Spanish. And the survey window was from the April 23rd to May 6th. And we had over 2,400 stakeholders who responded to surveys. So we were able to really get a lot of good feedback. Next slide. When we break that down, we were able to see by group how many participants we had at the listening tour and how many we had who completed the survey process. So just this is where we get our over 2,400 participants. And I just want to highlight the student voice piece. So for us to not only have 210 students who participated, but also to have 1,200 who completed the online surveys, that is just a wonderful compliment of our students. Next slide. So we're going to go over a little bit of the feedback from each group. Next slide. So this slide gives us an overview of the 5 themes of how it looks when it's presented in a graph form of how people felt about the 5 themes. Next slide. When we break that down, these were the top areas, especially for our AB 86, where support was requested, additional resources, starting with extended learning, time and format. So go back one, please. Also for additional ways to support students, that's something that's highlighted. And then 6 and 7, academic services and training for school staff, especially in trauma-informed practices and social emotional health needs as well as academics. Next slide. We wanted to highlight those areas again that came up as the priorities for all of our groups so that we can make sure that as we were drafting the AB 86 plan, these were the areas that we wanted to ensure we supported. Next slide. So our parent and community, this is their feedback. Next slide. So for the top themes from parent and community, regarding safety, most parents were pleased and didn't really have any significant concerns. About 60% had no significant concerns about communication or remote versus in-person learning. And it was about evenly split when it came to social emotional well-being or academic acceleration, with half of the parents feeling okay and the other half of the parents feeling some level of being anxious or concerned. For those who completed the survey, we found that safety and communication, again, people were feeling good about that. About 2/3 were concerned again about social emotional well-being, and the parents felt that their child will need additional academic or social emotional support. So for our parents, the top 3 AB 86 strategies they wanted to see investments in were for academic services, extending learning time, and training for school staff regarding trauma-informed and social emotional practices. Next slide. This gives a highlight of some of the questions that were asked in the survey and to see how parents responded just in a different format. So as you go through this slide, you can see more specific details. Next slide. We wanted to see if our schools were represented in terms of those who completed the survey, and we can see we did have representation from all of our schools having parents who completed the surveys. Next slide. Again, there was representation of parents who had students at every grade level. Next slide. Now we will share information from the feedback from our teachers and certificated staff. For the top, the 5 themes, our teachers were pretty anxious or concerned in most of the feedback. Safety had the highest positive rating, and the greatest concerns were about the need for academic acceleration. Those who responded to the survey, they had a strong and favorable perception of school leadership, felt that there was going to need to be support for relationship building and social emotional needs. And they felt that our COVID protocols were in place and they were satisfied about 60% feedback. In terms of our AB 86 strategies for our teachers and certificated, the request is integrated systems of support, again, social emotional training and services so that we can support the academic needs of students and monitor their progress. Next slide. Again, this highlights the questions that were on the survey and allows us to see in a different graphic representation what that feedback is more specifically. Next slide. Our teachers were, we had representation from the survey from all of our schools. Next slide. And we had teachers who taught all levels from pre-K to grade 12, even in our adult program. So we had a wide range of expertise giving us feedback. Next slide. From our school leaders, we wanted to make sure that we heard their perspective as well. Next slide. And so for our school leaders, they believe that safety has been addressed. There was not a lot of concerns and that they're ready to move forward with remote and in-person learning, the communication strategies, and their highest concerns were also the need for academic acceleration and social emotional support. The top 3 AB 86 strategies for this group was training for school staff, integrated system of supports, and extending instructional learning time. Next slide. For our themes for our leaders, this is the representation of the 5 themes and where they ranked that information. Next slide. Again, wanted to show the leaders' perspectives in terms of their priorities when we compare it to other groups. Next slide. Next, we'll share the feedback from our classified staff. For our classified staff, they felt so for our school leaders, that's our principals, our assistant principals, that also included some of our district staff who support our principals. For our classified staff, safety, they ranked that as feeling good. They were ready to move forward, felt that the needs were being addressed in terms of remote versus in-person learning and preparing to support social emotional well-being. Our classified staff rated the need for academic acceleration as their highest concern. On the online survey for our classified staff, 80% or more had a favorable perception about school leadership, the connection with their colleagues, and they had generally favorable responses for each question, actually. And the area where they felt that there is need for growth would be in communication. For AB 86, they're ranked, their top 3 requests for support would be for social emotional support and academic services for students, along with integrating specific systems of supports for students and their families. Next slide. Again, showing for our certificated staff, just where the questions and how they rated each part is available for more detailed review. Next slide. We did have participation from all of our school in terms of those classified staff members who responded to the survey. Next slide. Our students, we actually talk to our students because this support is for them. And so we really were interested in what they had to say. Next slide. When we looked at our students, again, over 1,200 students in grades 3 through 12 responded to the survey, and we wanted to provide what the questions were, and then where the students felt that they really wanted to get some support, or the things that stood out. And so, for example, question 6, during remote learning, I feel connected to my classmates. Only 39% of students agreed with that. And so we know from all that we've heard and experienced that that connection was something that was difficult to have during distance learning. Next slide. For our students, we asked them if their school had more funding, what would they like to see? And so for our students, it was getting extra help with their feelings or emotions. They also talked about the need to have regular access to technology. And then they had the option of just saying something else. And in grades 6 through 8 and 9 through 12, they listed something else. So we did drill down to find out what are something else, what was that? So for our students, 3 areas that really were mentioned a lot under something else were the need to address the dress code. That, as we have seen with our policy, that's not surprising. But what did come up more so with the dress code, there was a lot of concerns from our females that they felt that their dress code requirements were being targeted in a different way than males. So that came out loud and clear. Another topic under something else was under harassment. And they talked a lot about just bullying, how people are treated. There were a lot of questions about the need to address our LGBTQ needs for students. So they were very forthcoming. And then the third something else category, which is not surprising like dress code, is the quality of food. They, would prefer to have probably In-N-Out or something, that they would pick if they could bring food into the school. But those were the areas of something else, which goes to why we felt it was so important to not only give them a survey, but to hear their voice so that they could speak to some things that we may not have asked on a particular survey. And they were very forthcoming with information. Next slide. So we broke it down to share specifics by grade grouping. So let's see what our youngest learners who participated shared. When they talked about what mattered most to them, safe schools, just safe schools, getting help, and having someone to talk to when you're having problems. So really that need, again, for connections. When shared their priorities for using the money is technology, extra help, and again, their emotions. Next slide. Our middle grade students were asked the same thing. So what matters most to them? Having teachers and principals who care, positive relationships with other students, and safe and clean schools. When asked how they wanted to spend the funding, again, it's the emotional support, the technology, and that's where we found more of the something else categories. And for our high schoolers, next slide. They too shared that they want teachers and principals who care. They want to be able to have support in planning for college and career, and they want those safe and clean schools. They want help for dealing with their emotions and their problems. They want to make sure that they can have access to technology, and they were strong in the something else category as well. And that gives you an overview of our slides and the feedback. And we wanted to share what that path forward was. When we started this tour, we did tell the community we were going to share this information with the board. We report out, make sure that as we have been working to craft the AB 86 plan, that it's aligned to what people asked for, so that we could come forward with a action plan, which is an action item this evening that is aligned to what the community shared with us. And so our next action later in the agenda will be to share the AB 86 plan with you. And that is the feedback. I do want to say thank you to all of the trustees for joining in the reopening tour feedback sessions. I have received such positive feedback from so many stakeholders, just with an appreciation that we were willing to listen authentically, to really to walk the walk and talk the talk. That if we talk about parent and community engagement, if we talk about we are one community, that this is the reason that we should have, that we're proud to be Washington Unified, is because we are one community. We work together, we collaborate together, we have difference of opinion, but when we see the feedback, we are all saying we have the same priorities, and that's our children. So thank you again for that. And President Pizzotti, that concludes my report for this evening.
Now, can you hear me? All right. Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Now, before question and comments from the board, we are going to see if there's any public comment on this item. Mario, do you have any?
No public comments.
All right. With that, it is back at the board. Is there any questions or comments from the board?
I just want to thank you and staff for putting it together. I participated in as many as I could, and it was just, there was a resounding theme. I know that was incorporated in the plan that we're about to adopt in AB 86, and just really appreciate it, because it was a lot of work in a very tumultuous time. So just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to piggyback on those comments. I thought you did a great job in terms of giving every trustee an opportunity to, participate in each of their own areas, as well as the opportunity to participate in the classified, the certificated, and the student meetings on this. And I just really think that was actually a really good opportunity for us to hear what staff and students also had to say. So I really do appreciate all your hard work on this, and everybody's hard work, and especially Mutiu and his crew for just this excellent graph and documentation here that they put together. So it's just really great. Thank you so much for this. Is there anyone else who had any comments or questions?
Say something.
Go ahead.
I wanted to say thanks, Dr. Hildreth, for putting it together, and to everyone who participated in making it possible. I agree. Also, I love seeing, like you pointed out, the alignment of the different groups. There were almost all similar things that were important to them, and I love that. That's really great to see, and it's heartwarming. Also, I'm it struck me that the students all said they felt less connected than connected during remote learning. So yay for next year. I'm excited for what we can do together as a community. That's going to be, it should be a fun year. I won't uncross.
Thank you, Trustee Barnes. And seeing and hearing no more comments, we will, Clerk Venegas, go ahead.
Yeah, last thing. Great job, everybody. And definitely one of the
opportunity was just something that was felt. The connection was there. And I appreciate the entire team just putting something like that together, and really that's what I believe, reaching across and going above and beyond for who you serve, knowing who you serve. And I know that I just heard echoes even after that day of people being very excited and feeling the love, and that's a beautiful thing. So thank you all.
Yeah, definitely special thanks to Stacy Tran for doing all of that. I know that was not Muhu, and bearing with my limited Spanish speaking skills, but understand. But yeah, that was very difficult. That wasn't his staff, so that's a special acknowledgement for Stacy to put all that together.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. And now we're going on to the Local Control Accountability Plan, the 2021 annual update. Stan Weissich, Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services.
Thank you, President Pizzotti and board members. And so tonight we are going to give you an update of our preparations for LCAP, which is going to be, which is going forward very quickly. And to do that, the leader of our process has been our Director of Accountability and Compliance, Stephanie Grote, and she's here tonight to take us through where we are and where we're going with LCAP.
Great. Good evening. Yep, you were right, Mario. Next slide. So tonight really is just a brief overview of the Washington Unified School District LCAP process, including the purpose of the LCAP, draft goals, examples of some stakeholder engagement, as well as a preview of the draft annual update. Both the LCAP and the annual update will be presented at the public hearing on June 10th. Next slide. So this slide, just as a review of the school districts are required to develop and adopt annually and review a 3-year LCAP. Last year, due to COVID, we were supposed to adopt last year, but that was actually postponed to this year as we put other plans in place. Next slide. So just a reminder in framing the LCAP that the LCAP really serves 3 different distinct but related functions, including being a comprehensive strategic planning tool, as well as meaningful stakeholder engagement, as well as serves as that accountability and compliance piece for the district. Next slide. This slide we've shown before. It illustrates the LCAP process, really reflecting upon that it being an ongoing process, and it includes the development phase, which is where we are at now in regard to engaging the stakeholders, looking at data analysis and the reflection, as well as writing the plan, and then the adoption phase that we will move into in June. Next slide. So here's an overview of what the LCAP is. Again, it's that 3-year plan that describes the goals, the actions, the services, and of course the expenditures to support positive student outcomes that address those state and local priorities. The bulleted items that are listed below are what you will see presented as we go into the public hearing in June. Next slide. One of the items that we wanted to highlight this evening is truly our stakeholder engagement, and we heard it in the last presentation as well. But our LCAP process and stakeholder engagement really began last year as we were working towards developing our LCAP. Really, you can see the long list of things that we have done to engage our stakeholders. And this is truly just a sample of those items that we have done and that engagement. Next slide. As we moved into this school year, we continued with that stakeholder engagement, looking at gathering that meaningful feedback. What you'll see in the LCAP as we present it at the next board meeting really is not just the list of the stakeholders and the meetings, but really how that feedback has informed our goals. And that is instrumental in what we are doing to move forward with our LCAP. Next slide. Okay, this is probably the most wordy slide you will ever see in a presentation. But we wanted to put it in there really just to highlight what our previous goals were and to remind everyone that those were our previous goals from our 3 years ago. So written in the 2017 school year. Next slide. I'm not going to read that one. So the next slide really shows our draft goals. And these goals, as we've worked with our stakeholders, really we felt that bringing it down to 3 goals really allowed us to address more specifically the metrics and actions under these 3 goals. Not only that, but you can see that it really reflects the board priorities as well, as we're looking at our college and career readiness, our culture and climate, as well as our parent and community engagement. So in the actual LCAP, what you'll see under each of these goals are the metrics in which we will measure the goals, as well as the actions that we will take to meet our metrics. So these again are just the draft goals. They are not, we're not listing the specific metrics or actions at this time. Next slide. So the next part of the presentation, we wanted to give a little sneak peek into the annual update. So an annual update has always been part of the LCAP process, but with the LCP, if you remember back in December when we looked at the LCP, the annual update also includes an update of those actions. Next slide. So within the annual update, we are looking at the annual update of the LCAP from the 1920 school year, as well as the annual update of the LCP. And those are all the components that are part of those updates. Next slide. And one of the main components of that annual update is really how this reflection on what we have previously done in previous years, as well as through the LCP, is really informed our development of our LCAP. Next slide. So attached to the agenda, you saw just a draft sneak peek, and it is a work in progress. So there are areas that do say in progress, so know that it is not completed, but it will be brought back to you during that public hearing. With this slide, this is really an example of what the outcome sections of the LCAP annual update will look like. So in looking at the metric indicator, which is in the pink box, those are items that are taken directly from the previous LCAP. And then what we're reflecting on are the actual outcomes. So you can see this is just this was our first actually metric. So I pulled that one. And I just want to again reflect that these are taken from our 1920 LCAP that was rolled over from the year before that. And then as we look at the outcomes, and as you've read through that draft, there are some things that say things like due to COVID, maybe an assessment was not available. So we may look at, if we have district measures, we will look at those. But oftentimes there is no metric to match to that. Next slide. Also part of the LCAP annual update are the actions and services and expenditures. And this is really looking at what were the budgeted expenditures and then what were the actual expenditures. Again, this is just an example from our goal 1. You can see within this one, like our planned actions, as we were looking at instructional materials. The budgeted expenditures really was looking at 1.6 million, and then our actual expenditures were lower than that. And that is partly, and I can tell in this one, is due to our science adoption and what we actually adopted, and the amount that was budgeted was higher than what was adopted. And we'll go into more specifics into all of the actions at our public hearing. Also, in some of the areas with the actual expenditures, there are some notes due to COVID as well, as we always want to look at spending our least restrictive, or I'm sorry, our more restrictive funds first. So as we received funding, our CARES funding, some of those fundings did go to support some of our previous LCAP expenditures. Next slide. This section in what was uploaded is in progress. This is really where we're looking at the description of the funds, as well as what was implemented and what was not. So we will look at anything that has a discrepancy and highlight it here, as well as looking at the successes and challenges in regard to each of the actions and services for the goal. Next slide. Okay, so also part of the annual update, and this is the part that is new because the LCP was new. This is an example of what the in-person instructional offering example would look like with our total budgeted funds, as well as our estimated actual expenditures. It is estimated actual because these funds would be continuing, as well as when we're reporting this, we haven't finished our fiscal year. As well as then looking at the description. If there is a difference, they're looking at between more of a 10 to 15% difference. So most of them are noted as there is no difference. And then there's also the explanation of those funding. Next slide. This again is just an example of what it looks like in the plan with the analysis of the different programs. So you'll see them both for the in-person learning, instructional offerings, as well as distance learning as we continue through. Next slide. Okay, so the next steps for LCAP, and again, tonight's presentation was just to kind of give a sneak peek, look at our draft goals as well, is that we will have a public hearing that has to happen prior to the adoption. Ours is scheduled for June 10th at the regularly scheduled board meeting. And we will again solicit the recommendations and comments of members of the public during that public hearing for any of the expenditures proposed in the LCAP, as well as the annual update. Next slide. And then at the following board meeting, regularly scheduled board meeting, it is scheduled to have the adoption, as the adoption of the LCAP must be done at the same time that the school board adopts the school budget for the following year. Next slide. So that was a very brief update in regard to the LCAP and the process that we've taken so far. We do have a more lengthy and comprehensive presentation for the public hearing that will go over all of the components of the LCAP, the annual update, and the other items that are required in that plan.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. We appreciate that. Before we go to questions and comments from the board, Mario, do we have any public comment?
No public comments received.
All right, thank you. I'll turn it back over to the board. Do we have anyone from the board who'd like to make a comment, question? Vice President Wong.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you always for the presentation and the hard work. I am wondering whether or not it would be possible to incorporate some of the town hall findings as background. I know this is draft and a preview, but there's rich data that was just presented to us, and I would love to share that with the state as they're reviewing this, so that kind of that extra level of like detail around our intentionality with some, especially with the social emotional support and how we're prioritizing things.
Yes, definitely.
That's just my suggestion. So awesome. Yeah, and I think it's just hard writing with COVID, and you just things that we wanted to set out for are just different. You couldn't measure them. So thank you for kind of holding the keeping us the trains on the tracks, so to speak. So appreciate you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
All right, thank you so much, and I appreciate this. I have a couple questions. One would be, what do you see as a measure for equitable college and career access for our students?
I'm sorry, you broke up. Can you hear? I didn't hear.
How would we measure, what do you see as a way to measure the equitable access to college and career courses for our students. How might we do that, or what is the district thinking about that?
Sam, did you want to talk about that one? Or?
I was just going to look up the goals and just maybe just point out some of the ones that we've recently talked about in terms of our metrics. So we've talked about the different actions that we're going to do to accomplish that goal with our students. So we've talked about things like our college and career building foundations for success class, and making sure that we have something like that in our high schools. We've talked about goals of raising our A through G rates, and seeing how well our students are doing in our CTE pathways in terms of how many students are actually completing the capstone classes of these CTE classes, and how well, of course, our students are achieving on our standards assessments. Are our students meeting the standards? So those are just some examples of goals and a possible action that accompanies that.
As well as when we, I'm sorry, when we look at our metrics too, we do report our CTE completed data, and so we can look at the demographics in regard to that data as well.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping as well. We have talked before about looking at the demographics of our students who are taking the college career pathways and making sure, but I don't know if there's a baseline that we have that we can compare that to, and with the hope that one of our measures is maybe increasing those numbers, specifically targeted for demographics, I'm thinking of. Okay, and then with that might be a conversation around our students who are gate identified as well, and what are the demographics of students who are gate identified, and that might be mean looking at the tool that we're using. Is it accurately capturing our students who we believe should be getting identified, or is it disproportionately identifying? I think would be important information for us to know. And then the other piece of here is one of the goals was parent and community engagement. And I'm wondering, maybe it's not appropriate for students to ever fall under that, but when it says parents, and could students be called out in that language? Could we add students in that? Okay.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Yeah, and I'm thinking about our metrics and our goals, because some of those are specific to students.
Perfect. Okay. And then the only one other piece I was looking at was last year, although with COVID, of course, everything changed, but we were Norma Gonzalez had worked on a partnership with National Board to have something called Jumpstart come in, where it gives teachers an overview of what National Board certification is. And it's a way to support, to retain our experienced teachers. So not just to, support our brand new teachers, but to support our educators in our districts who really are exemplary and ready to go to that next level. And it was a free program. But then COVID came and that all kind of got moved to the side. But I'm hoping that we can still have a way, and I don't know if it's appropriate yet to put it in this document or wait until our new HR assistant Soup is here. But I don't want to lose National Board as being on the radar as a way to support our experienced teachers. And in the governor's proposal for his budget, he does call out giving $5,000 a year. And now this used to be the case as well years ago, but $5,000 a year for 5 years. So a teacher could earn up to $25,000 if they certify at a high needs school. So I know we have schools that would qualify, and that might be something to continue to explore for us. And I think that is mine. The only other piece I might say is you look at the LCAP is in budgets, when we think about equity, and I know VAPA is so important to us, is thinking about, and I know if you put one thing in the budget, you have to take one thing out, but just to throw it out there, looking at if there's any money to support instruments that students can then rent cost-free, because I do know that if we're asking students to rent instruments, I know we have some at our schools, but I think that's an important place to always look at how we can maybe continue to support and grow the instruments that the district has that they can loan students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Wong.
This discussion has made me wonder, just because, again, so much was suspended in 2020, how are you actually, and it's a challenging question, right? What is baseline, considering that you'll lost a whole cohort of kids, right? And so I know that's the challenge. That's why I'm wondering if it's a fresh start type of idea because of COVID and the impact of learning, and that we'll go from there, or like, how is the team thinking about baseline and data as we move forward? And, when we think about any type of testing, GATE or A through G or all of that, it's just, again, and I think I'm going to go back to the conversation we had before of transformative education. What does that mean? And this opportunity in this moment to kind of rethink that versus going, oh, this is what we had in the past, we'll just keep on measuring it the same way. Just wondering how staff is thinking about that, because, even the state superintendent is like trying to kind of get rid of the accountability for at least this year, because we don't know. And it's a statewide conversation. It's quite frankly unfair to hold us to accountable, quote unquote, for a year that was so traumatic in so many spaces. So
yeah, thank you for that, Vice President Wong. It is a big question, and it can be very comprehensive. What I can tell you just about our staff is that what we're looking for is to find the growth of our students. So to meet our students where they are and to take them towards growth and to accelerate them as best we can towards that growth. And so that's our mindset, is to best find out where they are. And yeah, there are some challenges with that from last year, but we do have some baselines of how students are doing in different areas. And some of those things maybe don't mean as much in 2021 as they did in 1920. And so there are some new realities in terms of the
in
data that we're looking
1920.
at.
Who was alive in 1920?
2019-20.
1920.
I think I meant 2019-20. Thank you.
Wow.
I'm not that old.
I'm not sure. I mean, we were probably around.
It's only
I'm
100
not
years
that
ago.
old.
No
I'm not
worries.
that old. So just to say that we're looking at the growth, and that's the most important thing, is looking at each student individually, because no one size fits all, and all students have their own zones of proximal development, and it's really about taking them where they are, meeting them where they are, and then moving them forward in growth. And so that's our focus, is growth.
And I appreciate that. And I kind of want to make it the same in public, to give ourselves grace, because our whatever benchmarks we had way back when are probably not the same benchmarks we're walking it. Will not be, actually, not probably. I'm going to say, I'll be honest, they will not be the same benchmarks. And I appreciate, and I know we talked to Dr. Hildreth about this, about like actually disaggregating a little bit further of what, kind of the subgroups that we're looking at to kind of be extremely targeted in how we kind of, make up for, academic gaps in between populations, right? So I just make it intentionally so that we know, like, at least for me, giving ourselves and staff grace that we're not gonna, our scores may look different.
And I will say the new LCAP template really does call out the subgroups and the specific actions for those subgroups. So you will see that data.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. Clerk Venegas.
I'm just gonna say one thing, just because it came up when you were talking about VAPA, when Sarah was talking about VAPA and renting. I think that's phenomenal. I would go and even just entertain the idea of lease to own. That model, not just with instruments, but like where students or families can. Like that rental can become something, and they could walk away with an instrument and continue their journey, whether that be in VAPA, and then we apply that in different ways that our students can benefit, and our families can work towards that ownership of what their interests are. So that was just, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I just wanted to piggyback on that comment.
Within legal parameters, perhaps that's a foundation thing, because we can't do gifts of public funds.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Trustee Morris? No? Okay. The only question I had, Stephanie, was there was one slide that showed we had budgeted about 1.6 million for books and materials, yet only spent about 400,000. The only question I have is, and don't get me wrong, I'm always happy that we have additional funds by over budgeting, and spending less. But how did we come in so high at 1.6 and yet only, we're 1.2 million off? So I'm just wondering, what was there some anomaly that happened in there, or was it just COVID?
No, that one actually was the one that had to do with the science adoption. So when they began looking at budgeting and looking at the purchasing of books and materials for a K-8 adoption, that did not occur. The K-8 did not occur. And so there was less materials that were adopted, as well as the materials that were adopted came in at a lesser price because they were more digital materials for our older students.
Perfect. Oh, and now Trustee Kirby-Gonzalez.
Sorry, I just want to briefly do one piece, and I know this isn't a budget discussion fully, but we do have schools that have strategically gone out and expanded their libraries with in an equity-minded way, with them brought in more diversity. And maybe there's a way, since this has already been earmarked for books and materials, that we can use this as an opportunity to look across the district at our libraries and resources. So just a thought. I know some schools have come to us and talked to us about doing that, and it's important for all of our kids to have access to rich and diverse literature.
Great comment there. Let's see. Anyone else? Seeing and hearing none, we shall now go on to P, action items. P1, we're doing the approval of the AB 1200 disclosure of collective bargaining agreement with WSTA and Management Confidential for 2021-22. Rob Martinez, Ed, Dr. Rob Martinez, Interim Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Business Services.
Yes, thank you, Board President Basati, Superintendent Hildreth, good evening, and governing board members. Primarily, as you mentioned, the AB 1200 disclosure statement is part of Government Code 3547.5 that requires that any financial impact in a tentative agreement between a school district and a collective bargaining unit be disclosed in a specified format. This format, the disclosure statement, is the appropriate format. What the disclosure statement also does is it allows and confirms that the superintendent and the chief business officer certify that any agreements that were entered into are to be disclosed and are affordable by the district. This case, again, the West Sacramento Teachers Association has concluded the negotiations. The cost of that agreement is encumbered in this document, as is your equitable delivery of salary increases to your management team and the confidential employees. So we ask for your approval so we can move this forward as part of our process.
Great, thank you, Dr. Martinez. Is there any public comment on this item?
No public comments received.
All right, is there any comments from the board? Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion?
I move.
Moved by Vice President Wong.
A second.
Second by Trustee Barnes. We'll take a roll call vote. Trustee Kirby-Gonzalez.
Aye.
Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
And Vice President Wong.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. That measure is adopted. Moving on to P2, 2021-2022 Annual Declaration of Need for Certificated Teaching. Dr. Rob Martinez, Interim Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources and Business Services.
Yes, thank you very much. This particular declaration of need is, again, a part of our process that requires that should the district have any difficulty with finding qualified, officially certified, certificated employees, that we state that intention ahead of the next school year. There could be a problem identifying fully credentialed CLAD teachers. CLAD is the Cultural Language Acquisition Development credential that is needed in California due to our multilingualistic classrooms. We also may have a need for bilingual CLAD teachers. These would be individuals who participate in our dual immersion programs. We have identified that there's a potential need for resource specialist or mild, moderate, severe teachers. Those are special education credentials. And we included one librarian service. Again, it does not mean that we will not seek fully qualified candidates, but in the case where we are not able to find fully qualified credentialed teachers, it allows us to then seek other individuals who are obtaining their credentials to do these jobs. So again, we seek your approval of this declaration of need so we can move forward with our filling of positions and hiring for next year.
Great, thank you, Dr. Martinez. Mario, is there any public comment?
No public comments were received.
All right, thank you. Is there a board comment? Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Hi, I just have a clarifying question. So any of these positions you talked about, would they be in the process of getting their CLAD? They just wouldn't have it yet?
Yes, the intention is that everyone hired into the district obtain the full California credential that authorizes them to do the work. Again, and if we cannot find those individuals, it is the obligation of that new employee to follow or continue down their path to obtain that full credential. And there are time limitations within education code that you cannot keep somebody in a longer period of time if they have not fulfilled their obligation to obtain that credential.
Okay, perfect. Obviously it's not ideal, but I just wanted to make sure that somebody would be enrolled currently. Thank you.
Great.
I can
Any
make
other-
a motion unless there's any questions.
Great, moved by Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
I second.
Second by Vice President Wong. We'll go with Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
Clerk Venegas. I too vote aye. Vice President Wong.
Aye.
And Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
All right, the measure is adopted, and we're moving on to P3, approval of expanded learning opportunities grant plan AB 86 COVID-19 relief package. Stan Moisich, Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
Yes, thank you again. And I think Dr. Hildreth is going to get us started on this one. And so we'll go from there.
Yes, thank you, Stan. I did just want to give a quick overview. I feel that we have really done a deep dive in AB 86, what the funding is for, how we should use it. Again, starting with our reopening tours and then having our board budget study session on May 5th, where we really talked about the needs and how we can use this funding, and then giving an additional overview at our last meeting on May 13th, getting input so that we can prepare and share this final draft with you this evening. Next slide. Again, we just wanted to highlight all of the stakeholder engagement, because part of the requirement of the plan is to be able to explain how did you engage parents to get their feedback in this developing the plan. Next slide. Highlighting the information that was shared earlier this evening, shows on the right the AB 86 strategies that were specifically highlighted during those feedback sessions. Next slide. We had feedback from parents, from our teachers and certificated staff. Next slide. Feedback from our leadership team for their AB 86 strategies. Next slide. From our classified staff. Next slide. And from our students. So all of our stakeholder groups gave us input on how they would like us to spend the dollars associated with our AB 86 allocation. Next slide. And so that leads us to our path forward this evening to share with you how we plan to address the priorities that our community has shared. And Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Stan Moisich, is going to take us down our path forward. Stan?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. So we have completed a plan, and we're going to be asking you for that approval tonight, and our formal board approval, that is, for this action plan. And also note, please, that this action plan can have some adjustments. We will monitor and assess the progress of our items as we move forward, so that if there are changes that need to be made or improvements, we can act accordingly. We will come back to you either late summer or early fall to share with you where our progress is at the next occasion, and to also share with you future fundings to align with our LCAP and to aid and expand upon our targets and goals with our ESSER funds. So you'll be hearing all that comprehensively and how that aligns with AB 86. So there's more to come. We will be monitoring all the action as it goes forward. And so when we talk about sharing a final action plan, we're not just talking about tonight, we're talking about moving forward as well through the year. Next slide. As has been brought up before, this grant is actually, AB 86 is brought up in two parts. There's the IPI, which is the in-person instruction, and then that's basically where we're planning to use those funds for a lot of the different cleaning and disinfecting that might be needed, PPE, personal protective equipment, any kinds of ventilation needs, facility upgrades such as outdoor learning spaces, a lot of the different things that we might see come up that we may not know that right now, but as time evolves and guidance improves, we may have some different needs that arise. So that's where this comes in handy. The expanded learning part of the grant is the bigger portion. And in that portion, at least 85% of the funds must be used for activities providing in person. The remainder can be used for activities helping and support remote learning. So in our case, presently, 93% of the funds are being used for in-person, whereas 7% will support remote learning. In addition, 10% of the funds must be used to employ paraprofessionals. Currently, we're at 14%. So as Dr. Hildreth pointed out, we really took seriously what the students had to say. They were looking at regular access to technology. They wanted extra help with the feelings and emotions, extra help on their academics. They want teachers and principals who care, and they want safe and clean schools. Those are the things that the students really asked for. From the family and community feedback, we heard a lot of concerns about students' academic growth. They anticipate that their children will need extra academic support when we come back in the fall to in-person. They also were concerned about social emotional well-being and the ability of their students to have peer relationships. Their top AB 86 strategies, as pointed out, were academic services for students. They wanted training for school staff, including trauma-informed practices for social emotional health and academic needs. They also wanted to extend the instructional learning time and formats. That one didn't make the top list for the students, but the parents definitely felt like that would be a really important one, is extending the instructional time. Staff was also very concerned about students' social emotional well-being, and they agreed that school leaders definitely helped resolve challenges. They were concerned about social emotional, as pointed out. They also thought professional development resources were helpful, but they didn't think this experiences necessarily help them promote equity. So that's going to be a big theme this year as we move forward in the year. A lot of our training, our culture is going to be very, very focused on equity. The top AB 86 strategies were academic services for students, training for staff, and integrated supports for students and families with barriers. I want to point out also, when I say staff here, I mean certificated and classified. Certificated and classified had the three same key areas. Next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about the different academic supports that are in the expenditure plan that you have. So that would include all the things we're doing to close learning gaps, including adding paraeducators to our staff. You see a breakdown on this page. We would like to increase our FEV tutoring for next year to make it open to all students, not just targeted students, but to all students. We also will want to invest in some of our instructional technology. You have some examples of that here. We want to keep supporting students who have credit deficient needs. We want to add programs and services for students to improve their ability to take assessments. And so we've locked in some these expenditures for that. Of course, when we talk about academic support, extended learning time also is academic support, even though it's a different strategy. And so we've looked at definite ways to increase instructional time. You already know about all the plans for summer that are happening. You also know that we've talked about maybe Saturday school intercession. We've talked about lots of after-school enrichment programs for next year. Sports for Learning is one that we started with already, but we're also looking at Mad Science. We also have My Spanish Journey, which is something that could is our enrichment programs that are done in Spanish. We think that'll be a special benefit to our DI program, but other students as well in the district, who including maybe some adults like myself. Although I got to get my own program, I can't use yours. Technology access and high-speed internet, you saw that as being a very important area for our students. This will also support our virtual academy. It will also upgrade hardware improvements that are highlighted on this page, adding Chromebooks with hotspots, giving more Wi-Fi access. All those things will increase the internet speed and help our families and students. For social emotional support for families and basically just supporting students that have to overcome barriers, we're adding outreach staff, one that's going to be dedicated completely 100% to homeless and foster youth. We will also be adding other outreach for our schools to help with our chronic absenteeism in different schools. We're adding social workers. We will be doing a lot more parent universities. That includes training, that includes time available for our staff to support parent universities, and adding materials and educational supplies for our homeless and foster care families. We will also be adding newcomer support for students and families. So we're looking at opening up centers that during the school day, even for families to come to the school, to better support the community during the day, not just at limited times in the evening. So a definite broader support there. You've heard training mentioned a lot. So we definitely are going to be adding a lot of features of training, including trauma-informed care, but not just training for staff, but also training for parents and all levels of our staff, classified, certificated, and even substitute teachers, everybody who we have in our community that's working with students in some way or another. So we're adding professional development. Grading for equity is going to be a big area. Standards aligned learning, something we've been working on for quite a while. How to accelerate students' academics achievement, ELD strategies, reading literacy, including dyslexia strategies, instructional technology and AVID strategies. And lots of social emotional support and training for parents and staff. Just to kind of give you a breakdown, the ELO strategies, that part of the AB 86 grant is $5,371,202. That's what we approximately believe we're going to be receiving. And just to kind of give you a breakdown of where things are percentage-wise in terms of how the grant plays out, about 18% is going toward extended learning, 17% toward integrated support to overcome barriers, 15% for technology. Training has a big portion of 23%, and academic support is the largest component of 27%. It's very important to remember that this is not the only source of funding that is available to our district, and that we are aligning this AB 86 as much as possible with our LCAP. But there's two different documents, right? So AB 86 is one-time money. Whereas LCAP, that's part of a 3-year plan that's ongoing. However, the AB 86 should align with the LCAP. And what we think the AB 86 funds will help us do is be able to extend and accelerate to our LCAP to a level maybe we couldn't have done before. So we're able to do things we weren't able to do before in our LCAP because we can have these AB 86 funds available to us. Also, just a reminder, as I mentioned before, we have other funds that will be coming into play here. So I know that one of the questions that we've been talking about at our board special session when we did the budget overview was the sustainability of the different programs that we might do with AB 86. And so one of the ways to, as we monitor, as we look at what parts of our AB 86 plan work the most significantly and most effectively, we will be able to possibly use our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 dollars to sustain those parts of it going into the future. So if you look at this, it kind of gives you an idea of how much money is coming in. These are estimated allocations, of course, and exactly the spending deadlines for those. So there is a possibility that we could use these funds to sustain some of our more successful programs for years to come. Our ultimate hope is that we are very successful with these programs, which will ultimately boost enrollment and do a lot of other things so that we can sustain the most successful part of our plans for years to come. So this is a very important investment for us. And I think we should look at it as an investment, not just money that's one time that's going to go away. But we're hoping to use what we use these funds for. It is our belief that we are investing and that those items will pay long-term dividends for us in terms of student success. And that's our presentation. We hope that you will approve our plan tonight, and we'll move forward from there.
Great, thank you, Stan. Before we go into the board, is there any public comment?
I have a hand raised from Amber Beck.
All right, go ahead, Amber.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Amber.
Hi, this is Amber Beck. Great presentation. I just had a question. One of the things you said was that you'll be looking into grading for equity. What does that mean? And how does that, is that the funding for that, is that for like training, or is that just something you're going to change the way you grade throughout the district? So I just wanted some clarity on that. Thank you.
I feel that that's a fair clarification. So
I was just going to go ahead.
So I think, Dr. Hildreth, do you mind clarifying? Because I know it's a new concept for many.
Yes, thank you for the question. So it really is, as we deepen our commitment to equity for all of our students, we really want to take a look at how our grading practices support really being able to see what our students are mastering in terms of their standards. And so it's a focus on really competency instead of more point-based for homework or your work habits or things like that. So it's an exciting new initiative that we're going to be starting for 21-22. And I know our Ed Services team has already begun to start that foundation. And so Stan, do you want to share a little bit more about the work you all have been doing?
Yes, and so we're just getting started with it. And of course, part of it is not something that just changes overnight or right away. I think it's more about just making sure we have the best practices. So we will be starting in the fall with a core group of teachers who we have not selected at this point, but we will be working forward with school leadership and looking for volunteers from our district staff. And we will be doing action research with that group that will take us over the course of next year to studying and looking at the data of our students and making sure that our students finding the gaps of where our students aren't meeting competencies and what can we do in our practice to make sure they are. So Dr. Hildreth hit the nail on the head when she talked about mastery. So, you know, many years ago, sometimes points, and I know parents have talked to us as school administrators, have asked us about, you know, feeling that some of their grades that their students were getting were subjective. And so this is more about making sure that we can link what the students are doing to the standards, which they're obviously getting assessed at the state level. So we want that linkage to occur at all levels. So it takes some of that subjectivity out of it and puts it on the mastery proficiency of the student. So we think this has been something that's been needed for quite a long time. But again, it's not something that happens overnight. There's a lot of work to be done, and we're really looking forward to the action research that our staff is going to be doing this year and moving us forward.
Great, thank you, Stan. Let's see, do we have any comments and questions from the board? Sorry, was there any more public comments, Mario?
No additional public comments.
Great, thank you. There's no additional public comments. Questions from the board?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Christy. Go ahead, Christy.
Thank you for that from both of you. It was actually great. And I'm really excited. I hope everyone feels heard. I know I definitely do. So I'm excited about that. I was curious about with our virtual academy and the 7%, you know, we have where was it? It's so tiny and I didn't write it down, but I just wanted to be sure that I guess I haven't heard a whole lot on the virtual academy and kind of what resources we're going to need for that. So as we plan, do we kind of have an idea of, I haven't really heard an updated number of how many students have enrolled, and then making sure that we have enough resources available for that program. I don't know.
Yes.
Was that a question? I think it was. Okay.
Yeah. So currently we have, as of last update, which I believe was yesterday, we had 97 students enrolled in our K-8 virtual academy. They were pretty evenly spread out from first grade all the way up to 8th.
Okay.
And, you know, at this point, you know, the materials that we'll be using will be the same district materials that we currently have. We do estimate some technology needs that may come into play in terms of, particularly with staff workspace. And I think the biggest need we probably will have to address once we finalize the program is staffing. So that's probably going to be the biggest need.
Thank you. And then I think you really answered it in accord or along the same vein of the A through G, because it's actually new to me too, and I've been trying to understand it better. So the resources available for that, as far as professional development goes, are those resources that we have at hand, or is that something that's rare and kind of being developed as, you know, we rebuild after COVID? I'm just curious.
So it's a good question, because there are resources that we can use. There are some resources, meaning some of our staff. There are materials that we can use that we've already been working with. There are some, but there's a lot of external providers that we can use also to help us grow. So, and we are using some external, we even prior to this have been using external providers to some extent. And so we definitely will continue to do so. There are a couple of ideas that are going to be, we haven't really implemented fully in the past. So we probably are going to need to look at some best practices that might be from the outside and look to bring those people in to show us how to better do it. So that's one of the things that these funds will allow us to do.
Great. I love the looking for guidance and then hopefully sourcing from within. I'm sure we have people with new experiences and old experiences that could be beneficial. So thank you. I think that's it. Yeah, that's the same question. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Barnes. Clerk Venegas? No? Okay. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Sure. Okay. I was looking at, I'm hoping the IPI grant, but I know that things change every single day on us, it feels like, but I'm hoping that we can use less of the funding on the cleaning and disinfecting that we thought we needed before, and more of it on the outdoor learning spaces. I'm hopeful for that. And then looking at the funding in terms of the virtual learning, I know that in this district, and I very much value it, and I think that it's good for kids that this is a district that does not jump to doing combos as a practice. I do think this might be an opportunity, though, if you have a classroom of 6 students and a classroom of 5, I think that that needs to be a consideration in the virtual academy. I think it can be done easier in this situation than it can be done in a physical classroom. So I think maybe being open to that in terms of that we're using that funding wisely, even though it's there, that we're still being strategic with our funding with kids. And then looking at the, this is all very good, by the way. I'm so excited about it. You can't tell because we're all masked up, you know, but this is very exciting. And if only, could you imagine if we were always funded at a level where we could do these things? But when I'm thinking about the after school enrichments, I just want to throw it out there also to go to our own staff. I know that there's a balance between people being stretched way too thin and not wanting one more thing after work. But I also know that there's some value in a teacher who has a passion to run an after school VAPA club, who would love it. And we could give them a stipend, and it's actually more cost effective too. So it's a win-win. Our staff gets extra money, classified or certificated. Yoga, right? Yoga after school. A teacher at my site runs a yoga program. And so there's things that we can do, I think, like that in terms of utilizing our staff as well as the third-party vendors.
I agree 100%. I just wanted to say there will absolutely be plenty of opportunities for our staff for after-school activities. In fact, probably to a new level, even doing some things even virtually after the typical intervention time. So we're looking at all kinds of creative ways. And I think we're going to have more opportunity for that than we've ever had before. So I absolutely assure you our staff will have every opportunity to engage in that.
Thank you. Thank you. And then looking at the professional development, I know in our LCAP, I read Playworks, and I've seen Playworks many, many years. And I also know it has a lot of benefit, right, for our kids. And I've heard many good things. But here's an example of how we've done the same PD year after year. And then how do we make sure, if this is soft money going away, that we can now have staff that can train one another, that we don't need to go back to the third party to keep bringing people in. And again, it's a fine balance between using not stretching our staff too thin, but also elevating them to take on those leadership roles if they want to train one another, because there's a cost savings there, but then you're also elevating your staff and you're also giving them additional stipends. And so that's just one that stood out because I know I've seen that for so many years, approving that organization. And I know that you spoke to that. I know you spoke to training our staff so that there would be capacity to go on when the money's not here. And then because you spoke about investments in student success, I'll just throw out there, which isn't really a change to any of this, but just as you think of the professional development, maybe if we have any educators who did want to do the national board certificate, that professional development could pay their fees. It's somewhere in the ballpark of, depending on how many components they do, $750 to $1,000. And they're doing all the work on their own time. It's really a win-win for everybody. So maybe a consideration for the professional development if you had anybody that was interested. And I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Kirby Gonzalez. Vice President Wong.
Yeah, thank you for a really, really comprehensive plan and doing it early because we wanted to provide our feedback. I see everybody's kind of recommendations incorporated. I love peer tutoring. I don't know if that's something that we talked about before, but the research is there. Hello? I can't even hear myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And so appreciate that. I also, again, there's just a lot of rich things you actually pull down the LCAP. It's just, again, imagine if we were funded at this level every single year. And how do we build the infrastructure? And if that goes away in 2024, that aligns with the LCAP, how do we build the infrastructure and leverage partners to do some of this and whatnot? So just thinking ahead. I do know that we've talked about this, and I want to have it more explicit in our plan so it's transparent, is that would love to have it explicitly kind of drawn out that diversity, equity, and inclusion training for staff and parents, especially kind of coming off the student forums where they, especially the middle schoolers, right, about not just bullying, but really acceptance of diversity, equity, inclusion, especially around LGBTQIA issues and other things like that. So it's probably, I know we've talked about it before, but just would love to have it called out. It's also in our board plan, so if that would be possible. And yeah, I think that's my only addition in terms of calling out this specific training. But yeah, it's extremely comprehensive, and yeah, it's a lot of hard work.
Great, thank you, Vice President Wong. Let's see, I only had 2 questions, and I think first question had to do with the 18 paras being hired on. Does that represent 10% of the funding through AB 86? Is that enough paras to be hired on?
Yes, it's more than 10%.
Okay, good. Okay, that's good. And then you said the key word in my mind, Stan, was dyslexia strategies. I was glad to see that in there. I was just wondering if you could do a little more in elaboration on what those strategies look like, because I have a vision in my mind. I appreciate that we have some strategies going forward about how to teach kids with dyslexia. My focus really is identifying kids and helping teachers identify, hey, there might be a problem here, right? So I'd really like to know what kind of strategies we have for that.
I can't really go into depth about strategies. I'd say that this is an area that we're going to need training on. Even without COVID, we were going to need some training specifically in this area. So it's going to be hard to go into total depth about that. But we have 2 programs that we are working with, that we're hoping that we can get training to do those types of things, to learn about the strategies that we need, including identification. So one of them is through our guided reading program, which is mostly focused around literacy at a very early age. So a lot of those strategies will be trained there because we feel like our staff does not have enough in-depth knowledge about that. So that's where we're looking to get that training on how to use those strategies.
Okay, well, I appreciate you saying that we're looking at getting the training, because I don't think that the guided reading is going to be enough in terms of identification. So many kids fall through the cracks each year and make it way further along in the process without being identified and receiving that kind of help. So I just really hope that we can focus in on the identification end of it. So that would be very helpful for me.
Yeah.
So,
And if I could
so
add
President
one
Pizzotti,
thing.
it's actually also on page 20 of the plan of the
what I'm
dyslexia of we're using iReady
Yes.
to actually use it, as well as the Sunday system.
Yeah, that's the Sunday is this program that our SPED department
Sunday
uses.
is, yes, that I understand. But
And then iReady would be part, and we talked about that at a previous board meeting, that iReady was something that has a screener involved. And so but I want to be transparent with you that we haven't started using that this is a beginning thing. So I just want to be transparent that this is not something that I don't want to say that we have mastered. We have a long ways to go.
Right. And I think the human element of identification is where we need to focus, not a program. So I do appreciate that. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I have no more questions, and we shall be, let's see, approving the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan of Assembly Bill AB 86. Do I have a motion?
I move.
Moved by Vice President Wong.
Second.
Second by Clerk Venegas. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
All right, the measure is adopted.
Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, on to P4. Approval of the Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant Plan, Assembly Bill AB 86, COVID-19 relief package for Washington Middle College High School. Is this you, Dr. Hildreth, or Stan?
This is me
Stan.
again.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is the same thing you just did for Washington Unified School District, but now you'd be doing it for Washington Middle College High School. Principal O'Neill unfortunately could not be here tonight. He is with his family. He has a graduate tonight.
Yes.
So even though we're in his facility, he couldn't be here. Although he's available if we need him by text. But I think we can spare him that tonight. And he is asking that we approve his plan just like you did for Washington Unified.
Absolutely. Is there any public comment on this, Mario? No public comment. Thank you.
Sorry, no public comment.
Thank you, Mario. Does the board have any comments, questions? Seeing and hearing none, do we have a motion? Moved by Trustee Barnes. Second by Clerk Venegas. Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
All right, the measure is adopted. Moving right along. All right, Q, Board Governance. Approval and recognition of resolution number 2021-49, LGBTQ plus Pride Month. We need to read the resolution. I have it up, actually. I can go ahead and read it without my glasses fogging up. Let's see, resolution number 2021-49, LGBTQ plus Pride Month. Whereas the core values of the Washington Unified School District include safe and peaceful and healthy environment for all students and staff, supporting collaboration with diverse communities and families. And whereas WUSD celebrates accomplishments of LGBTQ plus people and works to celebrate works to create a respectful, caring, and inclusive culture for all within the school district and community. And whereas lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ plus Pride Month is currently celebrated each year in June. And whereas the school year ends June, June is a time of reflection, celebration, acceptance, and love. Pride celebrations are rooted in the long history of minority groups who have struggled for decades to overcome prejudice and be accepted for who they are. And whereas Pride Month honors the 1969 Stonewall Uprising in Manhattan and celebrates the many contributions of the LGBTQ plus individuals, respecting the talent, creativity, and positive impact on our communities. Therefore, be it resolved that the Washington Unified School District Board of Education proclaims the month of June 2021 to be the LGBTQ plus Pride Month and will honor and highlight the identities and contributions of Washington Unified. Okay. LGBTQ plus students, staff, and families. Pride Month will provide an opportunity to combat bullying, harassment, and discrimination based on real or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. By recognizing Pride Month, the district supports the other policies, practices, and curricula that honor and respect LGBTQ+ students, staff, and their families. Passed and adopted by the Washington Unified School District Board of Education on this 27th day of May 2021 by the following vote. Okay, is there any public comment, Mario?
No public comment received.
Is there any questions or comments? Okay. I think we need to make a amendment to the resolved where it says that the Washington Unified School District Board of Education proclaims the month of June 2020. So we'll make an amendment to say June 2021.
You can also proclaim June 2020 again.
We can do both, right? We can go back, we can go forward. June of 2021. So with that amendment, I will move.
I'll second.
Moved by President Bizzatti, second by Trustee Kirby Gonzalez. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. Okay, moving on to the approval and recognition of resolution number 2021-50, National Gun Violence Awareness Day, June 4th, 2021. I cannot speak. Would somebody like to read this, or let me blow this up so I can actually see it?
I can read it.
Go ahead.
Okay. Resolution number 2021-50, National Gun Violence Awareness Day, June 4th, 2020. President Zada, do you mind muting yourself? Because I'm hearing
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
your feedback.
Yeah.
National Gun Violence Awareness Day, June 4th, 2021. Whereas every day 100 Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides every year. And whereas Americans are 25 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other high-income developed countries. And whereas protecting public safety in the communities they serve in the district's highest responsibility, and whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from dangerous people with dangerous histories, and whereas in January 2013, Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade and was tragically shot and killed just weeks later, should be now celebrating her 24th birthday. And whereas to honor Hadia and the 100 Americans whose lives are cut short and the countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 4, 2021, the first Friday in June as the 7th National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Hadia's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange, they chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 4th, the first Friday in June in 2021, to help raise awareness about gun violence, and whereas by wearing orange on June 4th, 2021, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to keep our children safe. Therefore, it be resolved that the Washington Unified School Board of Education declares the first Friday in June 4th, 2021, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and encourages all students to support their local community efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor and value human lives. Passed and adopted by Washington Unified School District Board of Education on this 27th day of May, 2021.
Thank you, Vice President Wong. And is there any public comment on this item, Mario?
No public comments received.
Great, thank you. I will just say that on Friday, June 4th, I will be wearing orange. I hope my colleagues will as well. Is there any comments from the board? Seeing and hearing none, is there a motion on the board? Moved by Vice President Wong. Second by Trustee Barnes. Trustee Barnes.
Aye.
Clerk Venegas.
Aye.
Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. All right. We're going to be out of here in record time. Right. Okay, moving on to our board and superintendent comments. Dr. Hildreth.
Yes, thank you, President Pizzotti. I really just want to start by saying thank you. I can't even believe that we're almost at the end of this school year. Like this time next week, we'll have one more day of school, and just an amazing journey that we've all been on together. And I'm just so grateful, number one, to have this opportunity to lead in this district where even when things are difficult, people are willing to talk to one another and listen to perspectives. And I think that's something that's of benefit that we want to continue. I want to thank the district staff for welcoming me and giving me background information and just being excited to share why staff loves Washington Unified so much. I want to thank our certificated and our classified staff for all the work that you have done in the 2021 school year. It's one of those years that'll be like imprinted in our memories of remember where you were in the 2021 school year and the pictures of the masks. And now when we think where our mindset was and the emotions we were feeling in January, February, March, and now we're celebrating our seniors who have persevered and are still excelling in despite of these challenges. So to all the support, I appreciate that. To our WSTA and CSCA members, thank you for all that you do. With a specific thank you, I must say to Doug Knepp and Daniel Gandera. I talk to them every week, and they really have given so much insight into the strengths of the district and the challenges, but our conversations show that together we're going to focus on the opportunities that allows. And so to have that level of collaboration with our associations just is really wonderful. So I want to just highlight and say thank you. I also want to acknowledge that normally during this time of the year, we would be having a different type of employee recognition of our employees who are retiring or those who have been with us 5-10 years. So due to COVID, we have had to do some changes, but our phenomenal HR team has designed a way to celebrate those employees. So starting tomorrow morning, members of our human resources team, they're going to be visiting different work locations of those employees who are the district employees of the year. They're going to give those employees certificates of recognition and some flowers, and they'll be sending us those names. Also, we're going to send out email and communication, social media, so that we can highlight those who have been chosen as employees of the year and have earned their pins of longevity for 5, 10, 15 plus years, and potentially 40 years of service. So we'll see. The pins will be formally provided in August and September because we're really hoping that we'll be in person and can invite people to come back and have a more personalized celebration. And then on Tuesday, June 1st, our HR team is going to visit the location of our retirees to offer them congratulations on their retirements and give them some tokens of appreciation. And again, we will invite them back when we're back in person to do a personalized celebration. We also have an employee who, Elaine Stahl, one of our classified employees, has received the Hero Award from Procure America for her exemplary effort, stewardship, and professionalism in representing our maintenance, operations, transportation, and facilities department. And so we've have so many employees that we've been able to highlight even during some difficult times. So that's a definite celebration. We know we're celebrating graduations and 8th grade promotions and kindergarten celebrations next year. All of our schools are highlighting and getting ready for those celebrations. We do just want to remind everyone that although we're still celebrating in a pandemic. So there are guidelines that schools are going to be asking families and friends to follow and adhere to, and know that especially at our high schools, when we're not on our campuses, that we're going to be following the rules of the facilities that they have lined out for us. So we're excited about that. In preparation for the fall, we really have been having a laser focus on safety in terms of our testing opportunities with our Buy Next Now testing availability for our students and our staff. So for example, just yesterday, we had 4 schools who hosted testing, Buy Next Now testing. That was River City, Elkhorn, Westmore Oaks, and Bridgeway Island. We've been partnering with Healthy Davis Together to increase our vaccination clinics, and we have seen some success with that. And we're working with Healthy Davis Together to hopefully continue that throughout the summer months, having our school sites as vaccine clinics availability, and even to start some PCR testing during the summer. To date, we've had 405 tests administered at our sites, and 219 vaccines have been administered at our clinics. So as we not only support our staff, we also support our community. And we want to get the word out that that's what we're here for. Our Fallbrook campus, exciting. We're getting closer and closer to move-in time. And so the future home of Westmore Oaks is almost complete. Our crews are still on campus in their final phases of the project. They're conducting walkthroughs and adding the finishing touches. We're anxious to see this project come to full circle and have one of our historic campuses bustling with activity once again for 21-22. And pictures of progress are available on our homepage and social media. And then lastly, again, and as we're preparing for the fall, we want to just let everyone in our community know that we are open for enrollment. We are a fabulous district. We're student-centered. We believe in our families, and we focus on equity. And if this is the kind of district that you're looking for, Washington Unified is the place to be. So we want to spread the word. We have in-person preschool for free for 21-22 at Elkhorn, Riverbank, Westfield Village, and Stonegate. Our programs are open to all families, even if you don't live in West Sacramento. So if you're in Davis, if you're in Woodland, come through. We have a place for you and your child. We're excited to offer so many more summer programs than ever before. We're also partnering with the city. We've got golf and tennis camps. It's just been all hands on deck to support our students. And for those who want more information about enrollment, we're open for all grade levels, and you just need to visit www.enroll@wusd.org. So I am excited for ending this year and even more excited to begin next year. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hildreth. Trustee Kirby Gonzalez.
Thank you. Reflecting on the resolution that we passed on gun violence, today I walked students out to their families under a flag that was lowered. And I can't tell you how many times I've done that. I don't even know anymore. So I really appreciate being on a board where we have a commitment to working to keep communities safe in our schools and also outside of our schools. And I'm proud to be on this board with all of you. And I'm also proud to be in this school district, a trustee and a mom and a community member. Thank you to everyone for all of the hard work that you've done. Before I say that piece, I would like to say that I think that next meeting or coming up soon, we should talk about how the district will target our quarantines of students to align with CDPH. So for example, quarantining only close contacts, possibly versus full classrooms, so we can be the least disruptive and following the science as we go into summer school and as we go into the fall. And then what quarantining looks like when we have vaccinated staff and what quarantining looks like when we have vaccinated students. And that might really help too, to share that with families and share that with our students that, you know, if you're vaccinated and you're a close contact, you don't have to quarantine if we get there, you know, if we get that language from Yolo County as well. So I'm interested to know what that will look like moving forward. My daughter said to me, Mommy, I don't want school to end because I love my teacher and the librarian and the crossing guard and the principal. And, you know, I said, well, they all need a break, honey. But our kids, you know, it's just so true that our schools are just such a special place. And despite the stress, I know that people have been stressed this year and that they've had to put on a face for their kids, and they did it well, because our students, when they came on campuses, I know that they have felt cared for. And I said this last time too, having the whole staff out, I know it's for health and safety reasons too, to get kids on and off campus safe, but it makes a difference to walk up and see your whole staff out there for you. And if those, you know, if we look at what things we continue doing, I think that things like that are just so valuable. And we have this year lost members of our Washington Unified families. Students have lost parents, and from COVID. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that this work that was done this year has been hard across the board. But I have no doubt that the way that this district has served our students and continued to teach, sometimes under conditions that were changing constantly from the state and our hands were tied, has saved lives and gotten us through this this time to, not completely through, but to better days ahead. And I know that everyone in this district is very much looking forward to never using the word asynchronous and synchronous again, ever. And so I just want to thank our staff, our classified staff, our administrators, our district office support, business services, HR. Everyone has had a different job this year. And our parents, our single parents, especially our single working parents, and our kids. So I can't wait to celebrate some more at graduation. And I thank you all. And I hope that everyone has some time to rest and reflect and rejuvenate. And I thank everyone who signed up for summer school. And I hope they get some of that time as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Trustee Barnes.
Next. Yeah, I too am so excited for this year to be coming to a close, and also thankful to be a part of this board. We were also driving in the car today home, and Lucy said, I can't believe I spent half of my year on the computer and half of my year at school. I was like, I can't believe that either. I also can't believe that we had started, or that I started this, being on the board, attending meetings in my house in the guest bedroom because I didn't have a setup for that. And here we are in this beautiful auditorium, able to be together, which is awesome. And I've said it already before, I'm so excited. But thank you. Congratulations to all of the seniors. I am reminded of how resilient kids are, and it's amazing. It's hard to get back out there, and I know we have some we're going to have some learning to do on how to reassimilate into the communities, but I know we can all do it together, and I appreciate the 2 resolutions tonight as well, and all of the comments. I also love that I share a birthday month with the Pride celebration. So that's always something that's been special to me. So I'm excited for us to, in this year, school year, and to go into summer with something to celebrate. And I'm so proud of this community. And I'm so proud of all of our families and teachers. I know you've worked so hard this year, all staff, all educators. Thank you so much for this year and for all that you've done. And I'm excited for next year.
Clerk Venegas.
I'm just gonna say gracias. Everybody said thank you to everything. Just gracias.
All right, thank you. Vice President Wong.
On top of that, mil gracias, no? Yeah. On top of that, just to value add the parents and the students. Thank you for them, for trusting us and believing us, right? Like all the comments that were shared tonight were really about the students actually showing up, the parents showing up alongside our staff. And so just want to thank the community for that, because it's also, it was not easy on the other end as well. And so, so I also actually, again, my nerd self, I sent the board this document. I had the privilege, as you all know, being voted one of the delegates for this area for Yolo County for California School Board Association. I want to acknowledge that our CSB board president, former board president, just passed. You all got the email a few days ago. So she stepped down, and she subsequently a few days later passed quietly with her family. So Suzanne Kitchens, I want to honor her commitment to kids and her commitment to California School Boards Association, because she really literally worked up until last week. That's how much she cared about kids and about improving school boards. And so with that said, I also want to acknowledge what the work ahead with Sue Heredia, who is I think the first Sacramento-based board president in quite some time. And she's currently president of the Natoma District, and so is also now a CSBA board president. So just want to kind of acknowledge those. But also I sent forward a document of reimagining California schools that was presented to the school board, and something that I know I acknowledge that we had started having conversations about what do we need to kind of focus on as we open up schools. I do have slight bias because my former organization, NICL, National Center for Youth Law, as well as CTA and other really well-respected organizations worked on this document about reimagining schools alongside CSBA. And so the 6 things I just wanted to highlight, or 5 things, is, and I think we're doing in AB 86, is that we from the community are kind of advocating for is 1, centering on relationships first. Right, that again, it's that concept of re-engaging and not just focusing on the testing or the scores or any of that, but really imagining what that looks like, centering relationships, addressing whole child needs, which we heard loud and clear from our communities and our community forums, strengthening staffing and partnerships, right? Like really investing in our people and our community to lift us up. For making teaching and learning both relevant, does it matter to the day? And my daughter tells me all the time, like, Mommy, there's this one teacher who always talks about current events, and she's the best teacher ever, right? And so, and relevant and rigorous, right? And I think we will be able to do that in grading for equity. And the last one I think is also extremely important, empower teams to reimagine and rebuild systems. Let's not go back to the old ways. Let's move forward with new systems and reimagining, right? Like not the traditional things that we've always known. And I'll just read kind of what it says. It's just lay the groundwork for long-term systemic transformation via collaboration and co-creation among racially, linguistically, and culturally diverse students, families, educators, and community partners. I think that's the heart of what we are doing and that we're going to move forward to. And I'm excited about that. And so, not that we need a document to have said this about what we were doing when we were building AB 86, but once I saw this was really the heart of our work. So I thank you all, the staff, community, the board for on this journey, because it is moving forward. We are shutting down an era and opening up a new possibility for our community. And I'm excited about that. And it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be transformative. And that's the conversation that I'm really, really excited for. So with that said, everybody who is not going to start summer school, I think, is there a break between summer school and the end? I'm hoping that people can rejuvenate in that 1 week, but hopefully and enjoy themselves and their family and get reinvigorated for the work ahead.
Great. Thank you, Vice President Long. I'm going to say my thanks here, but I'd like those on the call to turn on their screens. Stephanie, Stan, Rob, Terry, Andre, Yorgos, Mario, Jay, Matt, Rahale, Brian. I just want to say you guys are here with us, and I think we're missing Kylie and Angie as they are, all of you guys help us put together these meetings, do them at great stay with us way into the wee hours of the morning. And hence one of the reasons why we moved the consent agenda up to the front of the meeting and front loaded it this time. And Brian, you can turn your screen on too. I see you there. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for all the work you do to put in and you put in to make our meetings successful and as smooth as possible. We can't do this without you, and the district doesn't run without you as well. I mean, oftentimes we thank all of our staff and our teachers and our certificated or classified staff, but oftentimes, those that help us, the board, run and be effective in our governance don't necessarily get the recognition and credit. And, I just really wanted to say thank you to all of you people that help us. And I really can't thank you enough. So for that, we'll give you a big round of applause for that if we could. Right? So thank you guys.
What is this like?
All right. And thank you guys. I really appreciate you and all the presentations that you make and everything. So thank you so very much. Okay. I wanted to piggyback on a comment that Superintendent Hildreth made about the vaccination clinics and how they went, so well. I think, one thing that and Dr. Hildreth and I had talked about this, but one thing I had noticed, I go out to Davis every week, and I noticed at a high school in Davis, every single week at the same time, they have a vaccination clinic at the same place. So I was thinking if we can work with Yolo County and maybe our county supervisor, push on him a little bit and get Dr. Seislin to maybe agree to this, get a standing clinic at a same spot on one of our campuses every single week. So we don't have to worry about getting the word out. about these potential, all these roving sites. So if we can get a standing clinic every week at the same time, same bat channel, you know, to try and get this done, then people will know that we have a spot, right? So that's one thing that I'd like to just piggyback on your comments. So thank you so much. I just want to say congratulations to all those that are promoting to first grade, promoting from 8th grade to the high school, and from high school that are graduating. Congratulations to all those folks. The board was lucky enough to go to the Washington Middle College High School's graduation. This was the first graduating class of the full program. So these were the first freshmen that came in, and they took a chance on Washington Middle College, and then they're the first class to graduate from the full program. So, and I got to say that I kind of feel a little bit of pride in this to see them. We got to see them as the first class come through, and now we get to see them graduate. So it's really exciting for me to see this. And some of those graduates were, in hearing some of their stories, just absolutely floored me. There's several of those students that are going to be going into college as juniors. I mean, that is just something that is outstanding and should be recognized. So I would like to say also, I'm so proud of the number of scholar athletes that have a 3.5 or above. You know, sometimes I get a lot of criticism for the amount of times that I mentioned sports in board meetings for the past, 5 years that I've been on this board. But one thing that I would like to say is that, athletics tends to give you a reason to do good in school. And it was certainly a driving force that helped me actually graduate high school. And so I just wanted to say that our student athletes are, as Dr. Burns said, leaders. They're scholar athlete leaders. And I certainly hope that that they go on and have great success as they continue their careers forward into college and get to play sports in their college life. With that, I have no more further comments. The only thing now is future board agenda items. And I didn't notice the dress code, because we've asked for that to be on the future board agenda items a couple times now. And I don't know if you know this or not, Dr. Hildreth, but under future board agenda items, we usually list the items that are going to be coming up in future board items. If they may not be scheduled for a particular date, but we list them on there just to let people know that these are things that we're going to discuss in the future. So the
Vice President Pizzata, do you mean dress code or uniforms? Because we did pass during COVID.
I'm sorry, not yet.
We did pass the policy.
You're right.
On dress code.
I'm sorry.
On dress code.
You're right. It was uniform. Because we've been having that discussion for a while.
Yeah,
right.
So just point of clarification.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
We'll
Going too fast in my head is uniform policy. And right. Yeah, similar. That's the only thing I had. Did anybody else have a future board agenda item?
Just specifically the quarantining, that we look at what are if we have an updated quarantine to be more targeted. And then I think the board needs to look at our handbook. I don't think we did our board governance handbook. So maybe this summer when there's a light agenda, that's a good time we can give it a look and see if there's any updates.
I thought President Pizzata was supposed to update it the last time I recall.
By himself?
What? No, with was it with Norma or was it with you? a while. Anyways, it was supposed to be updated
Well,
a while.
normally-
I did it. I did it. You just,
Yeah,
I don't think it was approved, but I did it.
So that's the point. The point is bring it
It
back.
says in it that it is reviewed annually, and I don't think we reviewed it in December. So,
I don't think we've reviewed it in probably 4 years, 3 years.
well, that's not true, but we do need to just look at it and see. I think this summer is a good time, and maybe a board self-evaluation with that.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no more items on the agenda, we do not need a motion to adjourn. The agenda is clear. Have a great night, everyone.